This is Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate, the podcast where we cover home buying, home selling, home improvement tips and ideas, market trends and developments, and investing in real estate. If you own real estate in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, or want to own real estate here, then you're in the right place. Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate is hosted by Blake Watson, a real estate agent and investor in Tennessee and Georgia.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate. I'm Blake Watson with Epic Realty, and today we are going to be looking at some data for the Chattanooga market as we kind of move into this new year of 2026. Looking back at 2025 and looking ahead for 2026. The market data is in, and I will mention that it's not yet audited, so there may be a few data points that are a little bit off for 2025, but they're not going to be off by any significant numbers at all. It's just the latest data straight out of the Chattanooga MLS, and we're going to look through it and see what's happening in the Chattanooga market year to year and historically as well. And we'll even look at month to month a little bit here as well. So let's get started with the big story, and that is inventory. Inventory in the Chattanooga MLS has been steadily increasing this year. And when I say inventory, that's the number of residential homes for sale. And that can include a single-family detached home, a condo, a townhome, any single-family property that's for sale. That's what's included in the listings, the active listings, and in the inventory, as we call it. So we are ending the year 2025 with 3,551 homes that are active on the market today. So as I say, we've had increasing inventory each month, basically, throughout 2025. It did drop off a little bit here in December of 2025, and I don't know if that's a new trend or if that's just, a one-month anomaly. But throughout the year, up through November, October, November, really, we had increased inventory throughout the year. So in December of 2024, we ended that year of 2024 with 2,932 homes for sale in the Chattanooga MLS. This year, 2025, we ended the year with 3,551 homes for sale in the Chattanooga MLS. That's a 21% increase year to year. So if we just look at the end of the year as a marker, a snapshot, we had a 21% increase from 2024 to 2025. That's a significant amount of new inventory in the market that's available for sale. And what that has meant to us in the market is that you have more properties available to look at if you're wanting to buy a property. If you're looking to buy, you have more choices, more options, and there's just more out there to choose from. So that's a great number, and it has steadily increased really beyond even back before 2024. We had some increases in inventory. As I can look here in my annual numbers, we ended 2023 with just over 2,000 homes. Same thing for 2022. It was just over 2,000 homes. Now, back in 2021, we go back to the pandemic years. We ended 2021 with only 1,134 homes on the market. Wow. It was a little bit higher than that in 2020, and we go back to 2019, we're back to the 2,300 number, back in that kind of range. You have to go back to 2016 when we had approximately the same amount of inventory that we have today. Here we are, 10 years later. From 2016 to now as we begin 2026, 10 years have gone by, and we have roughly the same amount of inventory that we had back in 2016. So each year it has grown since 2021, and now we are at 3,552 properties for sale in the Chattanooga MLS. Now, let's talk about the average days on market. Because there's more inventory, it is slowing things down a little bit, meaning that the pace of sales is slowing down a little bit. Things aren't moving as quickly. You have more time to maybe look at some different properties. You have more time, if you're a buyer, to do your proper due diligence and do your inspections and really make sure everything's right with the property that you're wanting to buy. That has slowed down the days on market as well because there's more inventory. So the average days on market in December of 24 was 51 days, and in December of 25, it was 65 days, over 2 months. That's quite a bit difference in the average days on market. And just another metric that we get from that is called the absorption rate, and that is the amount of inventory that we have. If it were to sell and just keep selling and no new inventory came to market, you just sold out what we have, then how many months would it take to sell that out? So a year ago, in December 24, we had 3.4 months of inventory. Now, December 25, we had 4.1 months of inventory for our absorption rate. So it is definitely slowing things down. It's still what we would now call a balanced market. It was a seller's market for the past few years, and now we would call this a balanced market. Anytime you have 4 to 6 months of inventory, it's considered a balanced market. So we've talked about inventory. Let's talk about the number of properties that actually sold. Is there a slowdown in sales? Well, maybe there is some slowdown. It's not a huge amount, so it's not all that significant. But let's look at the number of sold listings. In December of 24, we sold 839 listings, and in December of 25, we sold 800 listings. That is a decrease. But more importantly, let's look at the entire year. The entire year of 2024, that's 2 years back, right? 2024, we sold 10,383 properties in the Chattanooga MLS. 2025, this past 12 months, the past year, we sold just a little bit less. It was 10,211 properties sold. That is a decrease of 1.7%. As I said, that's not a huge difference. The amount of sales has continued to be about the same each month, or at least throughout the entire year, but the inventory is up. So that's why we start seeing these longer days on market and a higher absorption rate months of inventory. Because there's more inventory, we're still selling about the same number of homes. So we know inventory is up and the same number of properties are selling, and there's a little bit longer time expected. If a property goes on the market, it's going to take longer to sell. But now, what about the median sales price? Are prices coming down? Are we seeing decreases in prices? Not really. Here's the data. So December of 24, the median sales price of all the houses sold in the Chattanooga area was $335,000. That was the median sales price. Now, December of 2025, the median sales price is $353,500. That's over a 5% increase year to year from December to December. Looking at the entire year of 2025, compare it back to the entire year of 2024, and let's look at the median sales price as an entire year, taking all of the sales for the entire year into account. So in 2024, the median sales price would have been $330,000. In 2025, for the entire year, the median sales price is $339,000. So prices are still going up. And actually, that sounds like a huge amount of money when you go from $330,000 to $339,000. It is. It's $9,000. That's a lot of money. However, if you look at that on a percentage basis, it's actually a 2.74% increase, less than 3% increase, about 2.75%, right? That is a much more sustainable environment. It's about even with inflation, right? It's kind of stayed about even with the consumer price index, about the same as regular inflation for the products that we buy every day. The only thing is and appreciation on a house, because it is such a valuable asset, is just a lot of money. That's $9,000 in increase from year to year in the median sales price. That is certainly nothing to be ignored, and it's one of the main reasons why I tell people it's wise to get into the game and become a homeowner sooner than later. Now, I say that with the understanding that it's not proper for everyone to own a home, and we do all need to take into account the financial situation when we're buying a house and the commitment we're making and the ability that we're going to need to be able to buy. But if you are a renter and you continue renting, that's okay if it fits your specific situation. But for the vast majority of people, renting long-term, year after year after year, is not helping them build wealth. If you can buy a property and own it year after year after year, then you're enjoying that appreciation. Instead of that $9,000 kind of moving the goalpost further away where a house costs more money, instead, you are now part of the ownership pool and you're enjoying that appreciation, and your wealth is actually being built at the same time. That's my quick financial snapshot for the value of home ownership. There's certainly much more to it, and we talk about it a good bit here on the Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate podcast. Now, let's talk about 2026. What's happening as we go into a whole new 12-month cycle here, an entire new year? Well, the most important thing is to remember we don't know. No one has a crystal ball. We don't know for sure what's going to happen with interest rates or housing prices. What I'm going to suggest with some predictions are what I see as the most likely outcomes. Let's first talk about interest rates. I have no reason to expect significant changes in long-term mortgage rates. And when we talk about mortgage interest rates in general throughout the United States, we are talking about fixed rate 30-year mortgages. And right now, they're actually at about the lowest they've been in quite some time. They ended the year 2025 right at about 6.1% on average for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. If that continues, that's pretty good. That's just hovering right at 6% or a little bit above, and that's pretty good. We've seen a lot of benefit by interest rates, long-term interest rates coming down over the past year. What's going to happen in 2026? Well, I would expect more of the same. I would expect it to hover around 6%. Certainly, I would expect it to be a little bit more from time to time and possibly a little bit less, maybe even down to 5.5% at some point during the year. I do not expect a major change. If it drops to 5.5%, that might only be for a month or two, and then it's back up to 5.75 or 5 7/8. Those are the kind of interest rates I expect, around 6% and maybe a little bit less in the 5.5 to 6% range. That's what I'm expecting for next year, and that's what all the resources that I'm looking at are telling me. Now, median prices for houses in the Chattanooga area, I expect them to maintain, maybe go up a little, maybe continue this as we just talked about, the 2.75% increase in values over the next year. That is not a huge increase each month or not a huge increase each quarter, but just a slow and steady increase. I would expect it would be maybe that much and maybe even less. Maybe this coming year in 2026, we see pricing kind of flat. And that's really what I'm predicting, is that prices are going to be about flat, maybe a little bit higher. I don't expect them really to drop at all. There's a lot of demand still in Chattanooga. There's a lot of interest in the Chattanooga area. I expect prices to remain about the same or maybe a little bit of an increase. So don't be counting on a big crash in home sale prices. That's very unlikely. Of course, we never know what's going to happen out there, but that's very unlikely. It's much more likely from all the data that we're going to be seeing steady prices for Chattanooga houses. How about inventory? I expect to see continued increase in inventory, but I also expect to see a little bit of a stepped up amount of purchase. I still expect it to be a similar environment to 2025 and even 2024, but I do expect more houses available and some more buyers coming into the market, particularly as we see those upper 5% rates coming in. If inventory does continue to increase as it has been so far, I would expect that days on market to continue to increase as well. So instead of 65 days, maybe it's 70 or 75. Instead of a couple of months, a little more than a couple of months, maybe it's 2.5, 3 months. Something like that is kind of the typical days on market for a property. These are just expectations that I have by looking at all the data and the trends that are being observed by many other professionals in the market as well. So that's my take on Chattanooga, and those are my predictions for 2026. And of course, whenever I'm talking to friends and associates, it is always the topic of conversation. Where are we headed in 2026 in the real estate market? So I just gave you some insight and my thoughts on it, and I appreciate you being a part of this today. If you'd like to talk more about your personal situation and maybe what's happening in your neighborhood as opposed to the Chattanooga area or certainly the national news, there's plenty of national news out there about real estate. You see that all the time. What I focus on is the Chattanooga area, Northwest Georgia and Chattanooga, Tennessee. That's the data that I'm looking at. So we drill that down much more because that's even a large area. We drill it down to county level, certainly by state, Hamilton County, Sequatchie County, the counties around Chattanooga in Tennessee, and then, of course, Dade and Walker, Catoosa, Whitfield. We look at those counties as well and stay very focused on county level. And then I go beyond that with zip code level data and even neighborhood level data. And I am glad to share that information with you and work with you to help you decide, is this the year, 2026, that's good for you to move into your new home? So please reach out. You can find me on social media. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn as Blake Watson, and I'm on Instagram as Rock and Roll Blake. And you can call me on my cell. It's 423-315-1815. My website is athomechattanooga.com. That's athomechattanooga.com. So look me up there. And of course, my office phone at Epic Realty, 888-893-3537. Hey, it's going to be a great year. 2026 is exciting as we look ahead. And I wish you all the best in your real estate journey.